search for Jay Slater is nearly entering its 7th day with no sign of the missing teen in Tenerife so far. There have been a lot of theories and conspiracies that have been posted online. Now, although this case seems to be very strange in itself, even with some firefighters on that case recently coming forward, even with them describing the case as very strange with certain circumstances that don't seem to make a lot of sense to them. Now, one theory has cropped up online with a lot of inconsistencies. One of the first things to take into account here is the Spanish police themselves. There aren't a lot of resources on the Spanish island, and therefore as a general overview to people that are in the UK or America, their policing is nowhere up to the standards of the UK or America, and that has a lot to say when most people in the UK and America think their policing is bad enough as it is. Without the time, effort, energy and resources, the Spanish police are kind of up against a complete media frenzy right now. UK authorities have offered their help and support, but have been rejected by Spanish police in doing so. If anyone's unaware at this point, a lot of people do unfortunately go missing in the Spanish island, especially around the area of Tenerife, problematically proving its policing problem. With multiple ongoing missing persons cases, the probability of those individuals being found is highly unlikely unless the body of them washes ashore. With it being low on resources in the police force, it's also low in resources in things like cellular towers, which would obviously pick up and track a person's cellular movement, plus the fact that the individual going abroad depends on if this individual has a holiday plan installed on their phone that allows them to be able to use their phone while they're abroad, as most individuals use Wi-Fi when they're away, which makes the disappearance of Jay even harder for those trying to locate him, even if they're using cellular data. But I believe that if the cell phone or the mobile phone was with Jay, and Jay still hasn't been found as of yet, then it's going to be very hard for them to pinpoint the location of where this phone is. Now, I'm going to put the theory on screen for a few seconds. If you want to read into it, just pause to read, and then that'll make a lot more sense going forward and some of the things that I'm going to pick out with this theory. One of the first things that I picked out about this theory was the money. It says here that Elle gets paid roughly around $25,000 a month. 10 others get $14,000 and new recruits get $5,000. It then says later on that they got dropped backpacks of packs, which would be estimated at about $17,000. It then says that there were 5 bags, which would indicate if there were 5 backpacks with $17,000 each, that would roughly be around $85,000. It then says that they all go their separate ways, in which the theory states that Elle gets a phone call from Jay around about 3 AM. Now that phone call is also something that I want you to remember. In this phone call, it's Jay saying that he's taken half of the bag and lost the other half of the bag. It then says that their lives are at stake and that they've lost around $6,000 to someone's business. Now, if Jay's taken half and he's lost the other half of the bag, and his bag is roughly estimated at $17,000, it should mean that he owes $17,000 to these individuals and not $6,000. I don't really understand where they're getting this $6,000 from. It said there were 5 backpacks estimated at $17,000 each, and now that Jay's lost this entire bag, they've lost the business $6,000, which doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense. Not only that, but they speak in the context of pounds, like British pounds, so like they owe £6,000. This is in Tenerife, and I don't know if people are aware, but whoever wrote this theory should know that this should be in euros and not in pounds. So half of 17,000 is 8,500. So, and if he'd taken half the bag and lost the other half, he should owe 8,500. The other 8,500 should come out of his pocket. So immediately this doesn't make a lot of sense, and the estimations in themselves of what this person claims that these individuals are getting paid in the first place is way too high. This theory would have actually been somewhat more believable if they cut the prices of what they claimed in half. The theory then states at around about 5 AM the bosses are coming to collect their money, as well as the remaining packages. And apparently Elle didn't tell her boss that Jay had taken half and lost the other half of his bag. So when the bosses arrive and only see 4 bags, the individuals obviously get questioned as to why there's 4 bags and not 5. The theory then states that the boss goes back to his car and gets on the phone. And when he comes back to the group, he tells them to all turn around and that if they don't get him 30,000, they will all be killed. Now, what's confusing here is what I said earlier on. If Jay had lost the entire bag that's worth 17,000, why are they being asked for 30,000? Even if this price tag was doubled, it would still be 34k that they'd be being asked for. Now, the amount that they were apparently given was 5 packs that was obviously 17,000 each, which equates to 85,000. How are these individuals being asked for a quarter of what they made for this entire gang organisation in one night, as if they're going to have this just somewhere in their back pocket? So it's very confusing where this 30,000 figure comes from, but I think that with the intertwining of the fact that a GoFundMe page was raised, they've put in there that maybe this price tag was 30,000, as it then gives some sort of credence to people thinking that the GoFundMe might be there to fund other kind of things. After Elle tries to beg and reason with the man, he goes back off, gets back onto the phone, comes back to the group, and at which point tells them that he needs to take one of them until he has his 30,000. They claim that they tried to reason with him, but after failed attempts, he then ends up taking Jay, as it's Jay that's the one that's apparently done the damage. Then from what you can see in the theory, they basically state as if Elle comes back and she tries to cover the whole thing up and go back to the UK as quickly as possible so that she can avoid or get away from the problems that's been caused in Tenerife. Now in this theory it also says that Elle goes into Jay's bedroom and gets Jay's phone that he left on charge. And the individual that wrote this theory said that they can 100% confirm that Jay's phone was at a high percent of battery and was not about to die. If we revert back to 3 AM in the morning in this theory, Jay calls Elle to tell her that he's lost the product. Fast forward to 5 AM in the morning when Jay is then supposedly taken by this individual. Jay at no point in between here has gone back to his accommodation to put his phone on charge and get back to them. He's used his phone in this theory, or alleged theory, to communicate to get to A and B. So he's had to use his phone to find out where Elle is, to be able to go and meet her, to find out the drop-off point of where they need to be for their bosses. Basically the long and short is if Jay was kidnapped, Jay's phone was too kidnapped as well. It then states that they went into the deepest part of the mountains where they left Jay's phone on the floor. They claim that they get back to the hotel at roughly around 7:30 AM after dumping off Jay's phone. Problematically with this theory is about an individual called Lucy M. And I think that this individual here has got things a little bit mixed or intertwined with the two in the fact that there's two Lucys that are out there. There's Lucy L and Lucy M. And Lucy M never received a phone call from Jay SLATER. Lucy L was the person that received the phone call from Jay SLATER at roughly around 8:30 AM that morning. When at this stage Jay had been walking for roughly around 11 hours after telling her that he was somewhere lost in the mountains with 1% battery and completely dehydrated. If the individual was completely dehydrated, had been at a festival and was partying all day, let's say he was drinking and taking substances, that alone is enough to cause damage to have Jay in the predicament that he's in. Forget all the background noise for a minute about people talking about Jay, who they think he is, looking into his background and making a complete story out of someone that they don't necessarily know. We're talking about a very young individual here, and regardless of what anyone's thoughts are here on his previous lifestyle or the way that he lives, the individual is still at this point nearly 7 days in and missing, and that should be the main prerogative here. But Lucy M was never the person that received the phone call. It was Lucy L that actually received the phone call, and this was an hour later than what this theory would state. Now, quite clearly they'd be able to see a call log on Lucy L's phone as to whether or not Jay did ring her, as they state in this theory that Jay had never rang her phone, even though they also stated that Jay was with them earlier in the night and he'd used his phone to contact one of them, only to backtrack and then state that Jay had never actually done this and left his phone on charge. As it then states that this Lucy is the one that then rang Jay's mum, and Jay's mum was the one that told them to flip the whole script. Another really small detail about this theory that I found really interesting is the fact that they spell mum M-O-M. Now M-O-M is an American thing, M-U-M is a British thing. M-U-M is how we spell it in the UK, and M-O-M is how it is spelled in America. So one of my first thoughts about when I was reading this theory, as that's just not how we spell it in the UK. I know it's a very small detail that slips a lot of people. It's also something that adds into a lot of contradictory statements that are being made in quite literally just a few paragraphs. I mean, even towards the end it says, please bear in mind that we get paid about 75,000 every single month depending on how good it is. Meaning that this wouldn't problematically be an issue that would have gotten to this degree at this point. If they were earning that kind of money, then yes, this would be feasible and paying. And I know that one of the weirder things is when people say, well, why would someone go ahead and post something like this? The honest answer is that I don't know, and you would be so surprised when it comes to social media and the sickening things that people will do for attention on there. Some people will get so invested in listening and reading and going into theories online, they'll actually interject themselves into the case in first person, as if it's them that was there and that knows everything about it, to try and get that theory that they first heard actually pushed out into the public and looked into, which can in itself sound insane, but so is the fact that people will go out of their way to do weird and strange things like this just for a bit of attention for 5 minutes. Now, I don't think there's any truth into this theory. I think what's going to problematically happen with this case as it goes on is fact and fiction are going to get intertwined, and it's going to make it very hard for the authorities to dig through and try try and find out what lines they should be going along to get closer to a definitive answer as to where Jay's location is at this current stage. But there have been and are some interesting things that are going on with the case, which is something that I'll be sure to address in the next part. But that's it from me. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below, and thanks for watching.